Okay, my name is Melody Walker. I'm with the DATCAP Hemp program, and this is a regulatory program, and so I'm just going to be talking about current activities and what we're doing as we're going forward toward the end of harvest of this season. So we are currently receiving 30-day harvest notices from growers. We are scheduling sampling, and we are conducting sampling, testing, and sending results to growers. That's our current activity. So the 30-day harvest notification, we need the 30-day harvest notification from growers, and you can notify us via the DATCAP Industrial Hemp at wisconsin.gov email address or the phone number 608-224-4629, or you can mail it in to our DATCAP Hemp program at Post Office Box 8911, Madison, Wisconsin 53708. So we need your license number, your name and phone number, location of the crop, the names of the varieties to be tested, and your expected harvest date. Why do we need a 30-day notification? We need a 30-day notification because we have to schedule the time to come out and do the sampling. We are taking samples in 70 counties across the state of Wisconsin, and so we like to try and group these so we can be as efficient as possible. And then we need some time to get the sample. So we need to schedule the sample, get the sample back to the lab, get the test results back to you before you want to harvest. So that's why we need this lead time. One of the first things we would do when you submit your 30-day request, your notification of sampling, is we're going to look for your in our files for the planting reports that you have already submitted, and there's a field planting report and a greenhouse / indoor grow planting report. These should have been submitted within 30 days after planting or by July 5th, whichever came first. We know that we don't have all the planting reports, so we just want you to submit the planting report as soon as you can. And we we need the planting report before we can come out and actually take the sample. So if you can get those in, that would be really helpful. At some point, we will look and see if we have all the current reports that we need. Licenses can be suspended if we don't get all the reports that we need. I would say don't panic. Just send us your planting report as soon as you can. And if you need a form, let us know, and we'll send you the form either through email or through the mail if you don't have access to a computer. Also, things may have changed, so you might have added new locations. A number of growers have added multiple locations, and so then you need to submit a license amendment form. And the first time you submit a form, it's free, and then after that, it's $50. So you can put, a number of changes on one form, and that would be considered one amendment. So for new locations for growing and processing, you may need to submit this. We provide information to law enforcement on where fields and processing locations are, and they contact us if they come to a location where they see something and it's not on the list that we've given them. And so sometimes growers will get some requests from us just based on law enforcement contact. We will be sampling each field and each variety, and we do the sampling and the testing. This is a regulatory sample and a regulatory test, and each sample must test at or below 0.3% THC. You can request a retest if your variety or your crop has failed the test. I would tell you that last year, which was our first year in this program, retests did not pass. Things didn't improve. And so you have to pay for this retest. So I just want you to be aware of that. Crops need to be destroyed if the varieties fail. If the varieties pass, you get a fit for commerce certificate. And Once you get that Fit for Commerce certificate, you're free to market your crop. So you want that Fit for Commerce certificate so that you can move your crop from where it's growing. In regards to testing, so we take the regulatory samples and we are testing in Wisconsin for total THC, and I'll pull a slide up in a minute explaining briefly more what that is. There are private laboratories, and a number of growers will take samples early on of their CBD crops, and they'll take them to private labs because they want the highest CBD level possible, but they don't want the THC level to go above 0.3%. So that is a way of trying to accomplish two things. One is to get your CBD levels as high as you can, and the other is to pass the official regulatory test that we're going to do. So that's fine. And also, we do not do any of the cannabinoid profiles other than THC. And so if you want those done, you need a private lab to do those. The regulatory states who are in this program are having tests done either through gas chromatography or HPLC. So the gas chromatography uses a process where heat is used, and when the heat is applied, THCA converts to THC. We use the HPLC method, and then we use a calculation which calculates total THC, and that includes the THCA that would be included through gas chromatography. So those two methods are equivalent for regulatory purposes. After the sample is tested, you will receive an invoice for the cost of sampling and testing, and that is $250, a flat fee, and you will receive your Fit for Commerce certificate. And then if a sample has failed, you'll receive an invoice of the same fee per variety, and also a destruction form to complete. And we will be asking you how you would choose to destroy the crop, and then we need to approve that. But we don't want to totally dictate that to you. We want you to tell us what would work for you if you have to destroy the crop, and we hope that you do not. So for our current hemp program statistics, in 2019, 1,314 grower licenses were issued and 625 processor licenses. Growers who registered to grow, we have 1,240 growers who have registered, so they have a license and a registration. The registration is an annual registration. You need that to actually be able to grow. And then 552 processors registered to process hemp. If you are a grower and you want to process your own hemp, you do not need a processor license. If you want to process hemp for other growers, then you do need a processor license. We have some acreage registered. So 16,100 acres were registered as acreage that people plan to grow when they registered back in March or before the 1st of March. We have 4,000 acres reported as planted. So that information has come into us on planting reports. Now, we think there's probably more acres out there, but not everyone has submitted a planting report. So again, please do submit the planting reports. Also, we ask when you're giving your 30-day notification, please be aware that we're going to have an inspector call you and set up a time to come and schedule your sampling of your crop. So please give us an accurate phone, email. Please set up your voicemail on your mobile phones. We've tried to contact some people and have not been able to get a hold of them directly. And it's really important. We're trying to get out and take your samples. And so we need to be able to contact you. And if you don't answer your phone, we need to leave a message. And our phone number when we call often shows up as private, and so people don't want to answer their phones. We understand that, but if you have your voicemail set up, we can leave you a message and you can get back to us. So, and then all the information about our program is on the DATCAP website, and you can just put hemp in the search engine, and there's tons of information there. If you want to contact us, please preferably use the email. If you have questions about the program beyond licensing, we'd like you to send through the email, 30-day notifications through the email. If you have other questions, you can just contact me. And my contact information is here. And we're trying to keep up with everything. We're still short-staffed, but we're making some progress on staffing. So, and that's it for me.
Okay, we do have some questions now that have been written in. So I'm going to act as the moderator to read those questions and then delegate them to whomever they go to. Most of them are going to probably go to you, Melody. So the first question is, could you sell a crop that tests over 0.3% to a company outside Wisconsin that allows for a higher total THC?
In Wisconsin, you cannot move a crop off the property that it is grown on if it tests above 0.3%. It does have to be destroyed, unfortunately.
Okay. Here we are. If, as a producer of CBD hemp seed, can I put my 30-day harvest notification for the harvest window that we intend our varieties to be harvested at, and then potentially harvest slightly later to allow the seeds time to mature, since the seeds maturity is after the flower maturity for CBD hemp harvest?
Yes, you should be able to do that, and as long as we know what you're trying to do, we'll try to work with you. Our concern often for hemp is that it is enough below the 0.3% that when you market it to a processor, once you've harvested it, it's still below the 0.3% for marketing and processing primarily.
Okay, another question. If we are drying plants off farm, what do we need to do for legal documentation, i.e. report location, post license at site, and GPS at DATCAP, or something more?
So sending a notice to the email location, all locations, growing, processing, drying, everything we should have the coordinates for all of those locations.
Okay. Can you harvest before you receive test results? So I assume I'm going to assume this means that you have sent in, it's been tested, and then can you harvest before you receive the results back saying you're clear?
You can. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot move it from the property. And if for some reason you thought you needed to do it, you need to contact us and we'll have to try and talk our way through it.
Okay. When do you think you might have a more complete summary of planted acres?
When people would submit their planting reports. We need the planting reports.
Okay, so this is gonna focus a little bit different. A couple probably going to be going to Shelby here. So the first one we have from in-house. What opportunities are there for breeding sterile females to avoid pollination concerns?
There's always some opportunity. So breeding sterile females to avoid pollination. So male sterility exists in lots of other plants. That has been a very useful breeding tool for the past century. So that's just something we need to discover still, if there's any native male sterility that exists, or if there's a way to somehow genetically manipulate the plant, either by using some advanced technology such as CRISPR or some natural variation that occurs to create steriles. But I would say it's possible. It doesn't exist yet, but it's possible.
Okay, another question. What other plants can potentially pollinate CBD hemp? We are receiving conflicting reports regarding wild hemp, giant ragweed, and a wide assortment of other blooming weeds, and are a bit concerned. So I will answer that. Wild hemp can pollinate. That's the same species. It can pollinate your CBD hemp. I do not know of any other species that will pollinate your hemp.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone, okay, that's, what precautions are you making not to cross-pollinate on your grain plots with CBD fields?
Yeah, that came up with yours, Rodrigo. So
Yeah, so all the agronomic research, the grain research is being done at Arlington and Chippewa Falls, and we don't have our CBD plots there. So Shelby has our CBD plots at other locations. So geographic
Yeah.
barrier. That's
and
yeah.
we don't know what is being grown around there. So we don't know. I mean, for the most part, we know that area pretty well, and haven't seen any nearby CBD farms. I would assume if you live close to a large university research station, you might want to get in touch with them to see what's going on. So that is, the onus is on the farmer this year for that.
Yeah, and that's across the board. The onus is on the farmer to figure out what's being grown around them. There is no ruling that allows for different growers to grow in different places. Is communication. Is there a public list of processors that growers can contact about their services? So Lisbon University talked a little bit about that, that we have a list going on the Wisconsin Hemp website, as well as Google, but something that we're trying to work on is at the field day, we'll be discussing what other processors exist. So they're out there. My first suggestion would be go to the Wisconsin Hemp website. Will the course be online? And I assume we're talking about the hemp course at UW.
Not the first year that it's offered. So the goal is to eventually put it online, but for the first year, it's going to be an in-class course.
Okay, this is for you, Melody. After submitting our 30-day harvest notification, can we only harvest our crop, no transfer to processor? So I assume it's asking, can we harvest after submitting our 30-day harvest notification before the 30-day window expires and DATCAP has not sampled the crop, after the 30-day window expires and DATCAP still has not sampled the crop, or after DATCAP has sampled the crop but before we've received our Fit for Commerce certificate?
You can harvest the crop. We need to sample it. We sample it when it's growing. So after we have sampled it, you can harvest it. You just cannot take it from the property until it's been, until you've received your Fit for Commerce certificate.
And then do we have to harvest our crop within a certain amount of time after we've received that Fit for Commerce certificate?
Ideally, you should harvest within 10 days of when you receive the Fit for Commerce certificate. And then this just applies to getting your crop harvested before the THC content gets too high. It can be tested anywhere further downstream. In processors, before they buy it, may have it tested. It can be, tested anywhere along the line. And so you just really want it to continue through the marketing stream and be able to profit from it.
Okay, and then finally, can we transport plant material from one location to another that are both registered under the same grower's license without a Fit for Commerce certificate?
You should have the Fit for Commerce certificate. You cannot take the plant material from the property it's growing on without the Fit for Commerce certificate.
Okay. Can we grow on a residentially zoned property outside of a residence, i.e. a garage, outbuilding, or greenhouse?
So there is field grown hemp, there's greenhouse grown hemp, there's indoor grown hemp. Depending on your zoning laws, you may be able to grow at a residence. You cannot grow in a residence. Attached garages are considered part of the residence.
Yeah, and that was discussed earlier in the April 18th webinar, a lot of the planting and growing considerations.
That's right. So that's been on our website before the licensing period for this year, before the licensing and registration period, that there is no residential growing in your house, in your home. So there is no growing there. And Yes, and also you need a minimum of 15 plants so that we have enough material for testing at the time of testing.
Okay, this is from Kurt. I would like to see a private use grow license. For example, 2 plants. Is this something coming or possible in the future?
I do not know if there's going to be any private use grow licenses. So we follow federal regulations and federal laws, and we are waiting for the federal government to give us guidelines based on the 2018 Farm Bill legislation. And so we will see what happens with that. I know there are some states who have some private use allowances. Currently in Wisconsin, we do not. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes with that.
Okay. I think all of us farmers are concerned about testing because it can literally ruin our whole crop. Do you anticipate that the average grower using reputable seed will have much to worry about? Also, to my knowledge, the emergency rule that regulates the hemp industry in Wisconsin does not mention decarbing or altering the hemp in any way prior to testing for THC. Is this a concern, or do you expect anyone to challenge the results of the tests based on that?
I don't know if anyone will challenge the results. We have a good foundation for what we're doing, and so the way that we're doing things, we will continue to do them. I would say if you have concerns about your crop potentially being too hot, that you maybe take some samples and take them to a private lab. Last year we had one variety that failed across the board, and so we prohibited that variety. There were a few other varieties that failed in some situations, and so you just have to be aware that there's not a guarantee. One of the things, the more plant material that we take when we come to sample, the lower the THC content may be overall, depending on the crop. There will be a few hot plants in every crop, and so the more plant material we take, the more it will be representative of the crop. And so for folks who have larger plots, that's easier to do. People sometimes complain they don't want us to take a lot of plant material, but it's actually to your benefit.
Okay, there's a question here about estimated dates and times for harvesting, and we're going to talk about that later in the webinar, so I'm going to skip that question. For the bus tour, is the bus handicap accessible? That will be to you, Rodrigo, I assume?
Yes, when you're doing the RSVP there is an option. So if you need any assistance, please let us know ahead of time, because we want to be able to accommodate everyone's needs.
Okay, how soon until you offer a recommendation plan / options for a hemp that fails DATCAP compliance testing? That's a little unclear.
Could you repeat it again?
Yes, so whoever wrote that question in, please reword for us. Is a notice required if taking a sample to a private lab to be tested before the initial DATCAP test?
No, you do not need that.
Why do you need so much material for compliance testing? Doesn't HPLC require an extremely small amount of material?
So we're taking a representative sample of the crop, whatever the crop is. And so if you have only a dozen plants, the representative sample is going to be a dozen plant tops. So that's going to be from a dozen plants. If you have 30 acres, the representative sample will be fewer plants across the 30 acres. So we have to take a representative sample of the crop. And if the crop is uniform, then we take, just a representative sample of the plants that are there. If there's a lot of variability in the plants, then we need to get some of each of the different plants that look different.
Okay, we got to clear up on that last question, which is how soon until you offer remediation plan options for hemp that fails? I know DATCAP compliance
Mhm.
testing? In other words, if it fails, is there a non-destruction option?
At this time, there is not a non-destruction option, and we will wait to see what we will get from the federal government on under the 2018 Farm Bill. Our program will have to be in compliance with their guidelines, and so they will be giving us guidelines on a number of things, including whether or not there's opportunities for remediation.
How much of the top of each plant gets cut off from each sample? 1 inch or more?
2 inches. We take 2 inches from the tops of each plant.
We have a question about disease prevention. We're going to talk, or prevalence. We're going to talk about that later. And then we have two last ones. Excuse me, just one last one. This looks like more of a comment than a question. If the industrial hemp is to help small farmers, why isn't the fee for over 30 acres only $5? Why is the fee for over 30 acres only $5 an acre? It should be $500 per acre. This will support small farmers. Is there a fee thought process?
The fees were, yeah, I personally did not set the fees, so we looked at all the other states. The people who set the fees looked at all the other states across the country and made the most reasonable decisions possible based on the fees. Wisconsin's fees are actually lower than many other states. We will be looking at the fee structure again when we're doing new legislation. So once the 2018 Farm Bill guidelines come out, then we will be, and also there's Senate Bill 188, which is going to be the new legislation that will help our program to align with the 2018 Farm Bill. Then we'll be writing new rules and we'll be considering fees at that time. But for now, the fees are what they are.
And then last, when will DATCAP be updating the accepted seed variety list?
We'll probably do that before the licensing for next year.
Okay, thank you. And we're gonna move along now to Brian Parr to talk about grain and fiber harvest.